Hi everyone, welcome to another road race video. This is the Super Series Round 1. This is the Masters 2 grade, and I'm racing with Port Adelaide Cycling Club, who you can see rolling out behind me. We've got 6 people on the squad, as well as 2 others who are unfortunately having to race in off-spec kit, because we can only have 6 in a team. I've raced with a few of them before, but this is the first time that the 6 of us plus 2 have raced together. Now, as late as this morning before the race, we were tossing up whether I would go for the sprint or Alastair would go for the sprint. He's probably got a bit more in the watts department than me. He's rolling around at sort of 340. My last test was about 315, but I'm quite a bit shorter than him, and following in his draft is a bit more beneficial. The other thing is he's got a whole heap more experience racing, and so he would probably do better in a sprint just from a tactical perspective, but on the other hand he could also be really good just dropping me off at the right spot. In the end we decided that I'd sit behind him and go for the sprint today. The other option we thought about was whether or not we'd go for the breakaway. It had been a really wet morning, and the forecast was for rain, and in this sort of crit with a fairly sharp corner, we figured that it might be easier to go for a breakaway because the peloton wouldn't be able to go around the bottom corner as quickly as a break might. But in the end, the weather stayed away, and so we decided to put all our eggs in the basket of the sprint. So we had another goal, which is to get KD up for the Preems. 2 years ago he won that competition, and a couple of us led him out around each race. This year that would sort of be his goal, but we'd also be going in all in for the wins. You can see Alastair just on my right, moving ahead of me. So my plan for this race was really to stick behind Alastair as much as possible, try to take the best, cleanest lines, and stay out of the wind as much as possible. What ended up happening is I stuck round the front of the race. I didn't really chase anything down, but I just wanted to make sure that if something did go, I was in a good position to go with it. And in the end, that nothing really went away. No one really tried to attack seriously. There were a few small efforts, but they just strung out the bunch, and things moved on. Let's skip a bit further around. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot to see. The camera on the front, the data corrupted, and so we're stuck with just a lovely rear-facing camera. So jumping forward right near the end of the race here, and I've had a really easy race. I've been sitting in behind my teammates. I've been around the front, but nothing too hard. At this point I'm sitting behind Darren Hicks, who some of you might remember is the guy with one leg with the most amazing diesel engine in the world. And I'm just sitting behind him, and you can see we've opened up a gap with 3 laps to go. I don't think he's attacking, I think he's just trying to string it out, but it was an amazing draft to sit behind, and you can see the Rocket Racing has to do a bit of work to get back on. So our strategy at this point, we had been practicing with KD, Darren, Alastair and me lead-outs, and the idea was going to be that KD or Darren would come to the front with a lap to go, push it really hard. Alastair or I, depending on who was going to be sprinting, would take the last sort of 600 to 200 metres, and then the sprinter would go from there. And we tried that in a few different configurations, and at this point it was looking like Darren was going to try to do that from at least a lap to go. I'm getting into a little bit of trouble here because I'm struggling to stay on Alastair's wheel. Not so much in terms of power, more just that I'm getting shoved off his line. So at this point I actually am sitting on his wheel, but then coming down the back straight, at some point along here, as people are passing, I get shoved off to the right, which is the left of screen. We've got now sort of 2.5 laps to go, and as these guys come past on my left, on the right of screen, you can see I'm sort of shoveled over from what's the left of the peloton going around the outside, coming across to the inside. Now I actually don't mind being on the outside around this corner. It's a much smoother line, and people tend to be a bit twitchy on the inside. You can see people going all over the grass. But anyway, I've been pushed off Alastair's wheel, and I'm now sort of a little bit out of position. Coming up behind me from Norwood is this guy eventually comes second. He's now sitting on my wheel. in the video by NorCal Cycling, he referred to this guy as Black Shorts Guy. We had a bit of a chat after the race about the fact that we had some disagreements with NorCal Cycling about the best way to take that bottom corner. Anyway, here we go. We've got 2 laps to go, and let's push a little bit forward. So as you can see, I'm still on the right of the peloton, and I'm trying to get across to the left because my lead out guy's riding around on the left, sort of vaguely trying to filter through, but I'm also a little bit too far back from where I want to be in the peloton. It looks like there's a few guys behind me, but I reckon there's probably 20 riders ahead of me. There was a big field. I think it was 65 riders entered into this. So coming around the corner, I finally managed to make it to the left-hand side of the peloton, but my lead-out guy's right up the front of the bunch. So I've come around this corner. This goes into a little bit of an uphill. It's a good one if you can come around the corner smoothly and just keep pedaling, because this uphill where you can see people getting up out of the saddle and sprinting kind of falls apart into nothing. Doesn't really make much of a difference if you're pedaling all the way through it. And at this point I'm putting in a few watts, bearing in mind I've only got a lap and a bit to go, moving up on the outside, and I'm passing Darren here. Darren's one of our lead-outs. Yelled at him that I was there, and then kept going through to the front. And at this point I've managed to get onto Alistair's wheel, pushed off Sam Jeffries here with the beard. Darren's got to the front. Darren's jumped in front of Alistair. I'm yelling at Alistair that I'm here. Darren's on the front and he's starting to push the pace, and you can see as soon as Darren gets on the front, things really start stringing out. I'm having a bit of a fun time making sure I've got Alistair's wheel, and here we are. I'm now sitting third wheel. Darren, Alistair, me, and in theory that's the bike race. Darren goes until he pops, which is about here, I think, about halfway down the main straight. We'd hoped Darren would get us to the top corner, but at this point Alistair's now on the front. He's going probably 800 watts, and kicking out of this corner he's still in first. Now he stops about here, and I make a bit of an interesting decision. Rather than going as hard as I can, there goes Alistair on the rider screen, I actually slot in behind 1 and 2 who have come past, and then open up my sprint here with about 100 metres remaining. And I managed to get it across the line, but only just, and you'll see the throw in the next little bit of the clip. So it was lucky for us that I did manage to wind in these 2 guys and make it across the line at the front. It certainly wasn't a sprint that worked perfectly. I would, in the next time, I'd actually, as soon as Alistair peeled off, I'd go for it as hard as I can and not rely on being able to slingshot around. But I did get lucky. The 2 guys who got ahead of me gave me a perfect draft, and then I was able to make it around them at the end. A couple of people noticed the camera. Can't say no to that. And then KD coming through. KD managed to get some points in I think the first of the Preem sprints, so he's on the board with that. And then a great finishing photo from Hayden at Turn 8 Photography. In actual fact, it looks like the guy who came in second didn't throw, and I reckon his head's probably at least level with mine, so if he'd thrown, he might have got it. Anyway, we'll see what happens at the next race. Thanks for watching.